So I can even sharpen this while I'm here in the editing process. So I'm just going to sharpen it just a little bit. All right, so I'm just going to save it as a JPEG. When I save it as a JPEG, it should automatically update when I go to InDesign. So you notice how the colors just changed a little bit from warmer to cooler. So I thought it helped also complement the golden perfect pancake as well. So just doing some small editing there. So let's move on to the right side of the page. Let's try to frame this a little bit. So we want the plate to come down. So let's go ahead and drag this all the way down. I'm just going to arrange, send this to the back, and try to find a really good cropping for this. So we don't need to show the whole slate with the blueberries and the strawberries. We just want to show the plate. So let's make it a little bit bigger. Just a little peek at that plate. What I also thought would be neat is if we maybe put the title or the subtitle here in this little area, kind of fit everything together like it was supposed to belong together, like a puzzle. And there's a couple things we could do with this plate as well. So we can drag this plate a little bit lower or make it bigger. And we can even do a text wrap so that this block wraps a little bit around the plate and kind of plays with it a little bit. So what we need to do is we need to feather this, because right now there's a very harsh edge there. So let's feather this photo so it looks like it blends naturally into the white background. So I'm going to go to my effects panel, and if you don't have this, you can call that up in your window. I'm going to click over here, effects, and I'm going to do what's called directional feather, because we just want it to feather in one direction, and that's at the bottom. So I'm over here at the bottom. I'm just feathering this just a tad, do maybe a couple inches so it has a nice feather. I don't want it to feather the plate. So that's probably perfect right there, so it blends in nicely. So we will kind of work with the title here, or the subtitle, a little bit when we find out the right type choice for this. But it'll probably go somewhere sandwiched here. So let's go ahead and do our text wrap before we do our bottom photo. So if I want to do a text wrap on a photo, but I want to do a specific shape, I'm going to go ahead and do a little bit of a trick. So I'm going to draw a shape of the plate. This is where I want the text to wrap. Right about there, and I'm going to apply a text wrap to this shape. So let's go to my text wrap options, and let's apply what we've been doing, which is the wraparound objects. And so you notice it's beginning to add one, and I can add a little bit more spacing to that. So just adding a little spacing. So now what I can do is I can make this transparent. So I'm going to my colors, and I'm going, instead of gray, I'm going to go here, which is going to be none. So I can have no colors. And so I get the same effect as I would a text wrap if it was an actual circle shape on the photo. So just a little trick. So now I can select this at any time, move the circle around to do the text wrap, but I'm going to keep it right here on the plate just to add a little character, a little interaction between the photo and the type below. And also if we wanted to add, this is also a warm photo. So if we wanted to kind of update this one and add some cooler tones here, we can by just going Edit Original or Edit With and go to Photoshop and do the same thing we did before. Add a little color balance and just add some cooler tones. Nothing dramatic. We don't want to make it look blue. We just want to bring out those blacks a little bit. All right, I'm going to save it. It's going to automatically update for me in InDesign. Perfect. So let's do this bottom egg photo. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to zoom out. I'm going to find what I think would be a good cropping for this. Just dragging out my container, and let's send it to the back. And we could probably reduce this in size. We don't want it to overtake the type. Just want to have a little basket of eggs down there in the bottom. Let's do the same thing and do a directional feather, but this time on the top. Directional feather, and let's do it on the top. Let's make a nice blend. There we go. That blends nicely. You can also go in Photoshop and cut specific objects out. You could just right click and cut that out and then put it back in here. You could do it that way if you have a different colored background that's not just going to blend nicely into white. So here's one thing. Let's look at our photos. We have a lot going on here. We have a lot of colors. So we have reds, we have pancake colors, we have eggs, and they all have different shades and tones, and they're all fighting with each other. So one thing we can do is we can maybe make one of these photos black and white. So I thought about the eggs. The eggs are just really an extra background storytelling photo. So what I want to do is I want to right click and edit this with Photoshop. Let's just grayscale this. So I'm just going to go to adjustments, go to black and white, and just kind of grayscale it. That's all I'm going to do. I'm going to save it. I love how Adobe, you can go back and forth without having to drag anything around, and it gets automatically updated. I love that. So now it's black and white, so that's one less color that's fighting with the perfect pancake color. And since we're already using Bodoni over here on the title, let's see how it looks on our body copy. So we're going to do the same Bodoni. We're going to do Bodoni book. And what I'm also going to do is I'm going to make sure the type size is good. So a nice readable type size is around 10 to 12 for editorial. You could even get away with 9 every once in a while, but I would never really go under 8 unless it's a very small print kind of thing. But I would try to keep it between 10 to 12. So I'm going to do 11 for right now. I'm going to add just a little bit of space in between the lines, just going up here and adding some leading. Kind of helps it breathe a little bit. And one thing I want to do is change the color. So right now it's just black. It's 100% black. But watch when I add and reduce it down to maybe 80% gray. So it's at 100%. I'm just going to do 80%. It helps to soften the type a little bit. See how it softened that a little bit? It kind of adds a professional punch to it. And same thing with our quote. We'll have to figure out our quote. So let's go ahead and add some manual line breaks. Paragraphs are good to have. You don't want to have one big long type box. You want to have some breathing room with your type by adding paragraphs. All right, so we have our little quote here. So let's find a good typeface for our quote. Let's go ahead and stick with this Bodoni. I'm actually going to take the eyedropper tool and sample this and just reduce the size. 3 lines would be great. Maybe I can tighten the leading. So select this and tighten the leading. Let's see how italics. I love putting quotes in italics because these are not italics and these are italics, and so there's that contrast between the different type. There's some differentiation going on. And another thing we could do is we can add a little more spacing here. So this is a text wrap, so all I have to do is increase the spacing. It will automatically do everything for us. So now I have a little bit of breathing room. Doesn't that help quite a bit to add some breathing room to that type? And what I thought would add an extra little punch and little division is to add a line here. Just going to add a line all the way across. And I'm going to make it orange. We could bring our little pancake color in there. And I'm making sure it's a stroke. And I'm just going to go to my stroke panel and I'm going to make this dotted. Just adding a little dotted line here. And I might need to make the dots a little bigger, so I'm just going to do 1.3. And I'm just going to hold down Option and create another one. What this does really helps to block out the area here where the quote is. It brings a little bit more attention to it, and it further breaks down all this type. So now this type doesn't seem so arduous to read. It's like more fun to read because there's things happening. There's quotes. There's natural breaks in the type. So 2 more things we can do to break this down further. We can take the first sentence of this and make it a little bit bigger and offset it a little bit and make it a different color, because it'll help, because you could do a drop cap, which is where you make this and you click over here on your paragraph panel, make it bigger. This is called a drop cap. We could do that. It's very formal and it looks good for certain articles, but since this is kind of a youthful, fun article, I thought maybe sticking with the first paragraph and making it a little bit bigger and then making it that orange color. So let's say I want to adapt this orange color right here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to double click this orange palette color and I'm going to add to swatches. So if I add to swatches, I'll be able to recall this color whenever I need it. So I'm adding to swatches. So now I get to go down to my swatches panel and I have it right here. So I could select on anything and it'll automatically apply it once I highlight the text. So there's that exact color, and it's a little bit light, and that's okay. We can always customize it a little bit, make it a little darker, just a little darker, not anything dramatic. We want to keep it in the same color family, but just enough to read a little bit better. What I thought we would do is connect these 2 pages more. So we have this wonderful typeface here, and I think the color changed a little bit on this. So what I want to do is I really want to connect these 2 panels. So we've done so with color, we've done so with photos, but let's do so with typography. So we have this really fun, strong, creative, decorative script type. I thought we would adapt this and use it one time, at least one time, over on this panel. So let's see what happens when we use it here. So I'm just taking the eyedropper tool. It reduces quite a bit of size. What I want to do is I want to align this T with the paragraph. So I might need to nudge it over just a little bit more to kind of create a sense of alignment. But notice how I have a little bit of spacing over here. It's going past the margin a little bit, or not the margin, but it's moving over to the left a little bit in indentation. It just kind of creates a nice smooth ride. Instead of just being everything is on the left alignment, there's just one that's off and then one that is in alignment. Kind of adds a little bit of character to it. Let's bring this type out a little more. I'm going to make that the same color and a little bit larger. So I'm going to make this 13 and then put a little spacing here. Really want that type to stand out. Let's make it the same color that we've been using, the darker version of that gold. So it's able to kind of reduce that. You never want to have a pop-out highlight line be too long. So if that was multiple sentences, it would be too overwhelming. So just having one little sentence, it almost acts like a subline. And then this acts kind of like a headline, and this is your main headline. So you kind of have this sense of type hierarchy. You have this is the main focal point. This is kind of your secondary title that helps kick off the page. And then you have this little third kind of highlight. And then you go into the body copy. Then you have kind of something that breaks it all up with a quote. And then you're done. And what I wanted to do is I wanted to bring, we have gold, gold, and we didn't have any gold on the right side of the page. So I wanted to add a little gold, so I just changed egg quality to gold and kept the rest of this a little bit more of a readable black or gray type. We have our page numbers, which all I did was bring in that gold once again and made the page number gold, and it works really well on this left side having the gold type. So there we are. There is the final. I'm happy with this layout. I just wanted to check off a few boxes when it comes to having a strong layout, that we have a photo that is the main focal point and the headline is the largest type, and that's the case. So there is one main focal point is to the left of the page, and the right photos don't fight or take away from the main picture. They're a little bit smaller and they're offset, and they help to tell the story. To make the bottom photo better, I would find a process photo or somebody baking and cooking. If I had a chance to find that perfect photo that would work really well there, I would. So you want to tell the story of actually cooking the pancakes as well as showing the finished pancakes. So you're showing the process, the beginning and the end. Of course, this will probably have another 2 pages to it with a recipe, and maybe someday we'll do that together, but we want to do the cover. Another thing is the columns are not too wide. They're nice and broken down into nice 2-column layout. 3 columns would be too tight, and 1 column would be too wide across the page and make it hard to read. So I feel like there's a readability here. I can read the very fancy script, which I usually hesitate when I use fancy script, but I can read it really well from a distance, just doing the distance test, starting off right away, how to make the perfect pancake. I can even read the quote. So there's a readability check that's being checked off, a readability checkbox. So I feel very good about the colors. I think I added cool colors to all of them, so they do feel like they go together. They both have that little bit of blue added to them. And I feel good about the crispness of the photos and the photography. I feel like I made some good choices. So here is our layout, our editorial layout. We did that probably in about 40 minutes or so. What we're going to do next is we're going to work on a front cover. So this is going to be the pancake issue. So we're going to do one based on this article. This is going to be an entire new magazine we're coming up with. We're going to be able to do the editing on the photo. We're going to be able to integrate the type of the magazine in here as well, and do some other little articles to work on the front to further practice our editorial layout skills.